Hare Krishna. This is Krishna Dasa. Welcome everybody. In today's session, we're going to cover Shlokas 2.51 to 2.54. Before we start, I will say the prayer to the Guru. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. If you want, we can chant Om Namo Narayana 3 times. You can chant with me. Om Namo Narayana.
Om Namo Narayana.
Om Namo
Om Namo Narayana. Namo Narayana.
Om Namo Narayana.
So I will play the Shlokas. If you have the Bhagavad Gita copy in front of you, please point it to 2.51. Okay, ready?
कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम् यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यसि निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिस्तदा योगमवाप्स्यसि अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधीः किं प्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम्.
Hare Krishna. So today I think Sujata ji is going to read the translations.
Hare Krishna, everyone. 2.51. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work in the material world. In this way, they became free from the cycle of birth and death and attained a state beyond all the miseries. 2.52. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. 2.53. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. 2.54. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So from 2.51, I think we will see some of the benefits of what Krishna calls as Buddhi Yoga. So in 2.51, Krishna explains the benefits of practicing Buddhi Yoga. He says that those whose intellects have become steadfast with spiritual knowledge understand that God is the supreme enjoyer of everything. They abandon attachment to the fruits of actions which bind one to the cycle of life and death. See, it's very important concept is more than the actions, it is the attachment to the results which is binding us to this material world. That is the bondage. That creates the bondage. So Krishna says we're working in this kind of consciousness. We attain this state beyond all suffering. Which kind of consciousness? The consciousness that God is the absolute ultimate enjoyer. He's the ultimate doer. I'm not the doer. And I should not be attached to the outcomes. So I'm performing my actions without attachment. That level of consciousness is what Krishna says helps us get out of this bondage. You know, Sri Ramakrishna is a very popular saint of 19th century. He also used to teach this very often. He used to say that all work should be done as a sacrifice to God. And Swami Vivekananda, who was a direct disciple of Ramakrishna, I think Vivekananda is probably one of the most popular Swamis of India and abroad. He's probably the first Swami who popularized Vedanta in the West. And So he expanded on his guru's teachings, and he has spoken a lot about karma yoga and how we can do karma yoga as a means of attaining spiritual growth and self-realization. But Vivekananda specifically says that karma yoga has to be done without attachment to results. And Vivekananda says that when we practice that, that in turn purifies our mind. And it gives us, of course, it is going to give us unselfish attitude. Selfishness comes only when you are expecting. You remember in the last session, Krishna said that karma yoga means what? Karma yoga means you are in a mindset of service. That is karma yoga. And service is all about giving. Now, when you are acting because you are expecting something, then you are not in a mindset of giving. You are in a mindset of taking. That is why in the previous session, Krishna said, such people who act with attachment to results, they are misers. Misers because they are always in the mode of taking. And Vivekananda says the same thing. Vivekananda says the other way around. He says, if you practice action without attachment, then you will develop an unselfish attitude. And this purity of mind and unselfish attitude, they are what help you realize your true nature. Very, very consistent teachings by all great Swamis and sages. And then Sri Krishna says, Yada te Moha Kalilam buddhir vyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. Very powerful statement. He says, Kalilam means darkness. Kalilam also means a dense forest. Moha Kalilam means a dense forest of delusion. Now, Lord Krishna is advising Arjuna on the importance of going above the confusion and delusion that bind him to the material existence. Then Krishna is emphasizing the need for Arjuna to rise above the attachment to the results of his actions. So Krishna says that is a lower level of karma yoga. The lower level is you are performing your duties, but then you are having a lot of expectations for what you are doing. Krishna says the higher level you have to raise, and that higher level is you perform your duties, but now leave the results to me. Don't be attached to the results. You just focus on what you need to do. And Krishna says that is going one step above, and Krishna has to do that. And Arjuna also needs to, so what Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you also have to stop being attached to this limited understanding that is provided by the Karma Khanda section of the Vedas. These Vedas, there's a slight confusion. Sometimes people say that why is Krishna saying Vedas are not important? So I'd like to clarify is the Vedas have been logically divided into three parts, three khandas. One is called the Karma Khanda, one is called as the Upasana Khanda, and one is called as the Jnana Khanda. So Karma Khanda is associated with the feet, and Upasana Khanda is about devotion. It is associated with the heart. And Jnana Khanda is Jnana. It is associated with the head. The Karma Khanda is meant for people who have absolutely no God consciousness. How to bring them? You have to make them start somewhere. So then they say, okay, go to a temple and you put 50 paise in the hundi, then God will give you something. So at least expecting that God is going to give me something, I will go to a temple. So that is a starting beginner level. Krishna is saying, Arjuna, don't get attached to that. You have to raise above it now. So when Krishna says don't get attached to the Vedas, he's specifically talking about the ritualistic aspects, because the rituals are all about expectation, correct? You do this yagya, you will get a son. If you do that yagya, I know some people, very religious people, when I was very young, religious people, they will always fast on Mondays. And then I will ask them, why are you fasting on Mondays? They will say, oh, that will give me a good husband. There's nothing wrong in that. The only thing is, Krishna says there is a purpose behind it. But once the purpose is accomplished, you have to rise above it. It's like a ladder. We use a ladder to climb up. But once you have already climbed up, you cannot keep holding on to the ladder. Don't be attached to the ladder. Your job is done. Now move on and let somebody else use the ladder. That is the message to Arjuna, saying, now don't keep getting attached to the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. The purpose is done. Now you have to rise above it. Because Arjuna was very attached. So you remember in the earlier stages, Krishna teased Arjuna, saying, Pandita, you are talking like a Pandita. Because Arjuna was so attached to those flowery terms of the Vedas and he was trying to use it to make excuses why he cannot fight. So Krishna says, stop getting attached to that. That job is done. Now we have to rise above that. So Arjuna says, once you get detached, you will be able to reach a state of detachment known as nirvedam. That is the word used in that shloka, which is essential for spiritual growth. I would like to dissect 2.52 a little bit more because it touches upon some key concepts. So if you see the shloka 252, you will see one term used is Moha Kalilam. We just discussed. That refers to mire of delusion. What causes delusion? I think we already discussed the difference between illusion and delusion, right? If you have a question, you can ask. But otherwise, delusion comes from ignorance, avidya. That is why in many places, Krishna and others will say that there are many hindrances to spiritual growth. And the first among them is avidya, ignorance. Everything follows from ignorance. Because it is the ignorance that makes us get attached to material things. See, we already studied previously that there is sat and there is asat. We studied that everything in this material is temporary and what is temporary is asat. But now we have that knowledge. So it is easier for us to practice detachment. But if you did not have that knowledge, the first question is, why are you talking about detachment? What is wrong in being attached? Correct? That is how the mind thinks. So that is why that ignorance will create more attachment. So Krishna is calling out that avidya is the first hindrance. We have to get rid of that by acquiring the right knowledge from the right teachers. Then Krishna talks about buddhi. So what Krishna has said is a very powerful statement. Krishna says that buddhi can be developed. It is not something that necessarily comes in virasat. It is not something that necessarily is given when you are born. You can develop it. And it can be developed by practice of detachment. Detachment will keep coming. The theme will recur. So it has to be internalized. Detachment is one of the most important themes in the Bhagavad Gita. Then Krishna says, Shrotavyasya Shrutasya cha. Shruti is, Vedas are referred to as Shruti, correct? So Krishna is here talking about the ritualistic sections of the Vedas. Krishna is encouraging Arjuna, go beyond a mere intellectual understanding. Because you have to experience higher states of consciousness. And how do you experience higher states of consciousness? That happens only by actual spiritual practice, not by theory. So Krishna says, rise above this. And then Nirvedam. Nirvedam denotes the state of indifference or detachment, where one is no longer affected by desires, attachments, aversions. Now, Krishna says that Nirvedam is very critical for spiritual progress. Once you have that, you know that you are progressing. So let us see a little bit, because we spoke about detachment so many times, I wanted to dive a little deeper into detachment. There are two words used in the Bhagavad Gita, not just Bhagavad Gita. In some other Vedanta also you will find these two words. One word is Nirvedam and the other word is Vairagyam. They are both used to refer to detachment. Now, they share some similarities, but they also are a bit different in their applications and meanings. What is Nirvedam? Nirvedam refers to a state of indifference or disinterest towards this sensory world and its experiences. So Nirvedam is a mental state. So when you are in a state of Nirveda, you are naturally not interested at all in sensory pleasures, sense objects, material things. That's the natural state. And when can you be in that state of Nirvedam? Once you rise above Moha Kalilam. I mean, this dense forest of delusion, as long as you are there, you can never be in a state of nirvedam. So you have to learn how to rise above that delusion, then you become the state of nirvedam. And that is pretty much the current shloka. In the current shloka, that is what Krishna is talking about. Transcending this Moha Kalilam in order to grow spiritually. So what is Vairagyam then? Because Vairagyam is also a very popular word. It is used to denote detachment. So Vairagyam is a conscious effort to let go of attachment to the material world and its pleasures. And this is achieved through cultivation of dispassion and non-attachment. So it's a practice. So Vairagyam is also considered essential prerequisite for spiritual growth and self-realization. See, as you can see, both terms are related to detachment and dispassion, whereas nirvedam is a state of indifference. It's a state of mind that arises when you have already risen above the delusional materialistic world. And nirvedam is a result of spiritual growth. Vairagyam is an active practice of cultivating detachment. Vairagyam is a conscious effort that we have to put in to let go of material attachments. So Vairagyam will help you eventually reach the state of nirvedam. So Swami Vivekananda, one of the most renowned leaders, he has written extensively on the concept of detachment and dispassion. And he has claimed that Vairagya is the only way to freedom. If you get a chance, sometimes you should try and read Swami Vivekananda's works on Karma Yoga. His works on, he has written on Jnana Yoga, he has written on Raja Yoga also, but his work on Karma Yoga, I found it to be eye-opening. He approaches the topic with a lot of depth and deep perspectives. So if you get a chance, you should try and read it. Now, Adi Shankara also spoke about the importance of detachment and dispassion. You all know Adi Shankara. He was one of the greatest Advaita scholars. In fact, thanks to Adi Shankaracharya, today we are all sitting and discussing Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita was just a small part of the Mahabharata. It was hidden in a way in that huge text. It was Adi Shankara who said there is a pearl hidden in the Mahabharata which has to be extracted and spread and publicized. So he made it available, the Bhagavad Gita available to the larger masses, and that is how it became so popular. So Adi Shankara has also claimed that Vairagya is the turning away of the mind from sense objects, and it is essential for spiritual growth. Now, it is documented in his Viveka Chudamani. So, Adi Shankaracharya wrote a text called Viveka Chudamani, very popular, very beautiful text. There in Shloka 22, he says, turning the mind away from the objects of the senses and placing it in the self, not allowing it to follow up the objects of the senses, let the sage constantly practice dispassion towards them. Swami Sivananda is another great Swami. He is also very popular. He is the founder of Divine Life Society. And he also has written a lot on yoga, Vedanta. He's also written a book called Practice of Karma Yoga. And he will also elaborate the importance of detachment. He also keeps talking. I'm quoting these Swamis so that if you want another different perspective, I'm telling you where you can go find them. It's not necessary that everything comes only from my notes. So if you want to find parallels or slightly different angles to what Krishna is teaching, at least in chapter 2 and chapter 3, you should go read Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. I think that is sufficient. But if you are hungry for more, you can go read Swami Shivananda's Practice of Karma Yoga. These both texts, they all talk similar things that Krishna has taught, and they will approach it from slightly different angles. So we just spoke about illusion and delusion, so we can get back to teachings of Krishna. So illusion is when the mind makes up its own images and stories. A very creative mind. That is what is illusion. The mind is being over creative. Whereas delusion is when a mind gets too attached to its own beliefs, even when there is evidence pointing to the contrary. Anybody thinks they have ever had delusion in their life? Anybody has been delusional? Alapji, you have been delusional. Can you give a quick example of?
Sometimes you just think too much, and then you just create that kind of reality in your mind, and then you believe that it's gonna happen even though things are not going in your way. So it happens few times with me. Yeah.
No, you are very honest. I really appreciate that. Introspection is very, very important. Anybody else thinks they have had delusional experiences in their life? I have had, definitely. So the thing is, sometimes like Krishna will teach us something, or your teacher, your guru may teach something. At the back of your mind, you'll hear a voice that will say, it's all okay, but, you know, so there that is the delusion kicking in, because you are so attached to your beliefs that even if Krishna stands in front of you and says it is not like that, you need time. You are like, but, also all this fanaticism is a result of delusion. Some people will say, nobody questions. For example, somebody will say, I'm a messenger of God. They will preach love. And people who follow that messenger will kill people to convert them into this. I'm like, how does it make sense? Because the messenger preached love. What makes you think you have to engage in violence to make people follow love? But it won't make sense to them because they have been brainwashed. That is delusion. Even when you show the evidence, when you show them the teachings of that messenger, when you read it out and you say, this is what they're written, it is all there, but it doesn't make sense. That is delusion. Delusion is a very dangerous enemy. Each one of us has it in us to some degree. And that is what is Moha Kalilam. It will bind us, it will get us into bondage, because even if God comes in front of us and gives us Brahma Gyan, our delusion doesn't let us accept it. So that is introspection, very, very essential. Whenever we are reading right now Bhagavad Gita, any shloka we are explaining, if your mind has a but, that means there is a part of delusion in us. We have to be honest with ourselves and keep working on it. Keep working on it. Keep working on it. See, the same detachment holds true for our own beliefs. You shouldn't be attached to your beliefs. Beliefs serve a purpose, but you shouldn't be attached. You should be willing to change if a higher authority is telling you something which is truth. So you have to understand that Krishna talks about Moha Kalilam, dense forest. In a forest, you don't see signboards. Then it's not a forest, right? So once you are inside a deep, dense forest, there are no signboards that tell you which way to go, which is the right way, which is the wrong way. So you think you are going out of the forest, but you are actually going deeper and deeper into the forest. You won't even know. That is the nature of the forest, right? Just like that, Krishna is saying that these ritualistic aspects, the Vedas that says if you do this, then you get that. If you do that, then you will get this. If you get hung up in that, it is like entering a delusional forest. Because you don't know what is the big karmic account which is getting generated, how to navigate that. It is not in our capacity. So he says you are going to get deeper and deeper into that, because today if you think you got a benefit, tomorrow you have to pay it back also. So Krishna says don't get hung up in all of that. Throughout the Gita, Krishna will emphasize the importance of spiritual growth. People just, again, I want to reiterate the part that just going to a temple or some other place of worship, paying a few rupees or a few dollars and getting something done is not devotion. That is delusion. It has a purpose, it has a place. It is there to get people started. It is not there to keep people there. Okay, and that is Krishna's message. The next one is also a very important topic. The topic is don't get swayed by people's opinions. Look at the kind of topics Krishna covers, so deep, and they're all like psychology, spirituality. Krishna says that you should not get attached to rituals which are intended to give us specific results, and we should also not let our intellect be tossed around by conflicting opinions. This person says like this, okay, that person says like that. Don't get distracted. I personally experienced this. Like some people will say, if you wear a yellow color cloth on a Thursday, then God will be happy with you. Or there are some people who will say, if you throw some coins into that particular river, you will get good luck. But then the other neighbors, they will have totally different opinion. They will say there is no such thing as God. Or they will say, oh, what luck? There is nothing like luck. You create your own destiny. Now, who to believe? Your mind keeps getting tossed here and there. And Krishna says, don't get distracted like this. Don't get swayed by such conflicting opinions. So what should we do instead? Krishna says, instead of that, just have faith in me. Have unwavering faith in me. Develop self-control and samatvam, calmness of mind. You cannot stop the noise. You cannot control the people. People will be people. They will keep giving you conflicting opinions. You cannot control them, but you can control your own mind. Krishna says that's what you need to do. Because samatvam is what is going to eventually be necessary for self-realization. So, there are Upanishads which are more like stories, and they explain many teachings of the Vedas. So there is an Upanishad called Katha Upanishad. So there is a statement there. It says, Yasya deve para bhakti yata deve tata gurau tasyaite katita hartaha prakashante mahatmanah. What that means is, to him who has supreme devotion to God and equal devotion to Guru, to such a great soul, the truths explained here become illuminated. Now, what are we trying to explain here is the difference between knowing and realizing. Do you know that the Bhagavad Gita is called as confidential knowledge? Krishna tells the Bhagavad Gita confidential knowledge. You may ask, what is confidential in that? Everybody today, even in this session, has a copy of Bhagavad Gita. ISKCON always publishes these reports that says so many million copies have been distributed. So in other words, there are millions of copies of Bhagavad Gita all around the world. So how can Krishna say that knowledge is confidential? The point is, you can know what is in the Bhagavad Gita, but can you realize what is in the Bhagavad Gita? The big difference. And that realization is possible only when you approach the teaching the right way. When you approach the teacher the right way, when you approach Krishna the right way. That is what the Katha Upanishad is saying. So as we begin to practice samatvam and perform our duties without attachments, we should also keep track of our attachment to material objects. Why I am saying this? If you truly practice this detachment, start small. Small things, like, say a beggar came and you gave some money to the beggar. Now, watch your mind when you are doing it. Is your mind creating expectations? Oh, tomorrow the beggar will salute me. Tomorrow the beggar will smile at me. Sometime in future, the beggar will also do something good for me. Are any of these thoughts going on in your mind? Catch it. Eliminate it. That is how you practice detachment. Start small and keep practicing it. And Krishna says, what is the evidence that you are practicing it? Evidence is slowly your attraction to the material world will weaken. It doesn't mean you will run away from the material world, but your attachment, you will stop running behind things. Krishna says, when that happens, that is an indication that you are practicing detachment. Now, this is what is referred to as vairagya. So when I said vairagya, this is what vairagya is. Constant practice. Catching yourself whenever you think you are getting attached, or when you are working in a mode of expectation, catching yourself, correcting yourself, doing it consistently. That is vairagya. And if you do that for long enough, you get into a state of nirvedam. Now, also, shall we go into why the samatvam is so important? One more aspect is because Krishna has said that by practicing samatvam, you can free yourself from Moha Kalilam. Now, I want to give an interesting example. Maybe that will give a slight direction to this topic. I'm sure everybody sleeps at night. I'm sure all of us have had dreams at some point in life. If somebody has sleep with absolutely no dreams, raise your hands. I would like to meet you because I feel very bothered by dreams. I'm always getting dreams when I'm sleeping. But imagine you are in a dream and a demon is chasing you in the dream. And you are very scared. And you are running frantically in the dream. You're trying to escape from the demon. Now, you don't know what to do. You are panicked. You are scared. And the demon doesn't stop chasing you. You are running all around. And then a wise man appears in the dream. And the wise man tells you that, beta, the purpose of this dream is to make you realize that it is a dream. It is not reality. And that you are supposed to wake up. The reality is you are safely sleeping in a beautiful house somewhere. Now tell me something. You have had many dreams. Have you ever seen yourself sleeping and dreaming when you are in the dream? It is not possible. If you have to see yourself sleeping and actually doing the dreaming, the only way possible is you have to wake up. When you wake up, then you will know, oh, that was a dream. I'm actually different. I'm not impacted by the dream. Correct? Now, this applies to the wakeful state, doesn't it? Is it possible that this life is a more grand dream? Okay, there may be a lot of jnana. Intellectually, a wise man comes and tells you that this life is a dream. The purpose is to make you realize your true self. All that jnana is okay, but when will you truly be able to see your higher self? When you wake up. That waking up is what is called a self-realization. Realizing the self. Just like in the dream, when somebody says self-realization, that means wake up and you will realize that you are actually the person sleeping in the sofa or person sleeping on the bed. Just like that, this life is a bigger, grander dream and we have to wake up. How will you wake up if you are so attached? Imagine in the dream, you have a beautiful house and you are telling the wise man, no, if I wake up, this house will go away. In the dream, you are wearing a beautiful cloth. In the dream, you have a lot of money. And you are telling that wise man in the dream, if I wake up, all this will go away. That's what we do in the waking state, right? We are so attached to so many things. How will we wake up? How will we have self-realization? Self-realization is possible when you understand that this is all asat and I have to let go. Then you wake up. But in order to do that, let us say even the wise man who was telling you inside the dream, he was telling you that this is a dream, you have to wake up. If you have to listen to that wise man, what is the first thing you have to do? Any answers? We spoke about the scenario. The scenario is a demon, you are scared, you are running around. Then the wise man comes, he tells you it's a dream. Yes, Ekansji?
You have to realize that you are sleeping.
But to do that, what is a prerequisite?
Belief.
To believe also, what is the prerequisite?
You have to have a calm mind.
Yes. If you are still panicked, you don't have any attention for what the wise man is saying because you are still worried about the demon. You are still panicking. You are pushing away the wise man and you want to still keep running. When will you even listen? It's once you calm your mind. That is all Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying all this gyan, from intellectual gyan to realizing gyan, the transition will happen once you calm your mind. If you are so agitated, it's not going to happen. Isn't it natural? Isn't it very scientific what Krishna is saying? That is why this samatvam is so important. That is why Krishna says, handle pleasure, pain, heat, cold, everything with equal mind, calmness of mind. That is how you practice, and that is how you get into a state of samatvam. And once you get into a state of samatvam, whatever Krishna is saying, whatever God is saying, will start making sense. Till then, it will just be noise. You see, it's a very, very practical advice Krishna is giving. Now, Arjuna is then asking Krishna a question. Arjuna says, okay, Krishna, you are saying that, a person has to practice samatvam. And a person who is constantly in samatvam and established in wisdom, such a person is called Stithaprajnya. We discussed that also earlier. That word is coined especially in the Bhagavad Gita. So Arjuna says, you say I have to be calm and all of that. But can you show me a person like who has already done that? In other words, a Stithaprajnya. How do I identify a person who is already in that state? How does the person talk? How does this person walk? Arjuna wants to know. He wants evidence on somebody who has already calmed their mind, somebody who is already always in samatvam. I want to know how that person behaves so that I can check. Now it's important. Arjuna's question is important because it highlights the difficulty in assessing a person solely based on their external appearance. See, the question is very deep, and that answer is meant for all of humanity. Is how do you identify a person who is truly elevated or who is truly on the path to spiritual progress? How do you identify that? Because it is possible somebody is wearing all elaborate clothing, religious clothing, putting tikka, tilak, wearing rudraksha, God knows what all. But inside their mind, they are nowhere on the path to progress. They may be having a lot of negative qualities, vikaras. How will you know? Whereas on the other hand, there may be somebody who is very ordinary looking. You look at them, you won't even notice them. Very ordinary. But maybe they are spiritually very advanced. How do you say? A great example is Ramana Maharishi, very great saint. He was so simple. He lived in poverty all his life. Literal poverty. And he usually, a lot of these so-called spiritual people, they like to give a lot of elaborate bhashans. They will need to be on a stage somewhere. They need tens of thousands of people listening to them. But Ramana Maharishi was the exact opposite. He hated talking. He would not want to talk. He would not like to talk at all. In fact, most of the times he would want to be just in silence. However, he was one of the most elevated souls of those times. He was a true self-realized yogi. And he came up with the technique of self-enquiry. So Lakshmiji may know this. In Tamil, it is called Nanyar.
Atmavisharam, Nanyar.
Nanyar. That is a technique of self-enquiry that you can use for self-realization. Such a level, but you look at him, you will only say, oh, he's such a poor guy, or he doesn't even talk. So, it is misleading, correct? That is also part of our delusion. We are delusional. We have some beliefs. We think that a spiritually advanced person means he has to look handsome, he has to have this, he has to have long hair. Isn't it? We have all created these stereotypes. If that is missing, then we think that person may not have anything. That is delusion. And that is the reason Arjuna's question comes in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has made him ask that question so that he can go on to explain the true traits and characteristics of a Stithaprajnya that we can learn. And it is not for judging others. It is for evaluating ourselves. So tomorrow, if we get into a delusion that now I am Stithaprajnya, how do you really know? Look in the mirror and you have to ask, do I fulfill the prerequisites that Krishna is saying? He's going to go on and talk about that in the next few shlokas. He will say, what are the symptoms of a Stithaprajnya, a person who is Stithaprajnya? We have to take a note of all of that and ask ourselves when we look in the mirror, how many of these I fulfill? That is the whole purpose. I hope this all makes sense. So from verse 2.55 until the end of the chapter, pretty much 2.55 to 2.70, Krishna will explain the qualities of a person who is a Stithaprajnya. So from next session, we will start talking about that. So I hope this all made sense. Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful again for all of you who are all regular and supporting and taking so much interest in the teachings. It's a very blessed feeling to be with you all, because this satsanga is so important. This satsanga really is very precious. So I'm truly grateful to all of you for that. I'll stop the recording and then I'll open the floor for any questions or comments.